The attack in Nairobi has, of course, highlighted the threat posed by the al-Shabaab group, which once controlled most of southern Somalia. The group is listed as a terrorist organization by both the United States and the UK. It's said to have up to 9,000 fighters. For more on the subject, let's speak to Robert McFadden. He's a counterterrorism expert. He joins me live now from New York with more. And thank you so much for joining us, Robert. Kind of fix the global landscape for us. How would you place al-Shabaab in that landscape? We just heard from Nina Maria Potts. She interviewed an American here who's a Somali American who says, you know, you ignore al-Shabaab at your own peril. Is that a good way to put it?
I would agree with that, and thanks for having me. As far as setting the landscape for al-Shabaab, and the al-Shabaab that we're talking about now, just keep in mind that it's going to be fuzzy for a few days to sort out exactly what faction was it in fact controlled by the nominal head, Mukhtar Abu Zubair, and you know what kind of faction within the greater al-Shabaab was involved here, because as it may have been talked about with your show, over the previous 3 to 4 months, there's been significant upheaval and infighting within the al-Shabaab elements. So the preeminent leader right now is Mukhtar Abu Zubair, and indications are, at least preliminarily, that it was his element that has the goal of the transnational Salafi Takfiri terrorism that carried this out, although at the same time, from open reporting, there are some other contradictory indications saying that it may have actually been a breakaway. But to the original point about ignore this al-Shabaab and what's going on in the Horn of Africa, I absolutely agree, because groups like that, although it may not be controlled by the al-Qaeda core remnants in Pakistan and Afghanistan, it's certainly inspired by that message of abject violence.
What does this say about the United States, this far removed from the 9/11 attacks, that there are recruitment efforts going on apparently in the United States, in Minneapolis, to try and get people on board this group, Americans?
Well, that's right. Yeah, absolutely, because it's one of the other hallmarks of al-Shabaab as it evolved previously from the Islamic Union and then the Islamic Courts organization, is to be an international entity with relevance. But something to keep in mind, though, from my experience for many years looking at this and previously working it as a federal law enforcement officer, a lot of individuals are actually self-recruited and earnestly seek out opportunities. In the case of the Somali diaspora, you have, thankfully, a small percentage of young men that are sometimes attracted to the very potent message of nationalism or patriotism for the motherland, often a motherland that they know nothing about. Then there are also a small percentage of travelers or sojourners like Omar Hamami, who again are pulled by this message of international fighting for religious causes. They know it. So that kind of recruitment absolutely is a factor. But again, keep it in perspective in taking the Minneapolis-St. Paul community, which has the highest number of Somali expatriates and immigrants. It's very, very small numbers, and Minneapolis-St. Paul has a very progressive community engagement program to try to get in front of this type of recruitment.
How about the global landscape? And we don't have a lot of time, but you know, there was a report recently this year that U.S. intelligence was provided information on Tsarnaev, Tamerlan Tsarnaev, who was involved in the Boston bombing, from Russian intelligence. There are terrorists just about everywhere. Everyone seems to be dealing with this issue. What about sharing intelligence? Is that making any headway?
Well, in that case, the specific case of the older Tsarnaev brother, quite unfortunately, tragically, it looks like it, to use the worn-out expression, fell through the cracks. I don't know specifically what kind of notice the Russians provided to the FBI through liaison channels, but it wasn't sufficient enough for either entity to follow through. Now, as for the road ahead, absolutely, like-minded partners, allies, and nominal allies have to cooperate with each other and essentially implement a zero tolerance, not just against terrorism and violence, but also the message of the call to violence.
Robert McFadden joining us from New York. Thank you so much for your insights. Appreciate it.